What's going on, everybody? Welcome to our first official episode of the LA Report, starring yours truly, Eris Morrison and Linjo Kilo.
Yes, sir.
We've been working on this podcast a little over a year and a half now. Finally got the ball rolling. We're excited to bring to you a variety of topics.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, man. It's definitely been a long time coming, man. And like you said, we're not a one trick pony when it comes to our show. So we're going to cover sports, entertainment, politics, current events, anything that comes to our mind that we want to talk about. We want to do it here. So definitely happy to have you all for our first episode. We haven't done so already. Please add us on Instagram at TLAR_podcast and subscribe to our YouTube channel at the LA Report. So let's before we start, we want to give out a moment of silence to one of our good friends that passed away yesterday. Her name is Brittany Flowers.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, man. She was if you had a chance to know her, she was such a beautiful soul and, such a good person to be around. And to see someone with a spirit like hers, go pass away, it's, it kind of numbs you, like when I heard the news, I was shook, because sometimes life has a funny way of like making you realize how fragile it really is. So,
Absolutely. And just like you said, just piggyback off your own statement. She was so full of life, very energetic, always had a smile on her face, always had a way of just bringing a sense of joy. So, like yourself, man, I was shook to hear the news and just very saddened for her and the family, and man, just praying for them right now. So we definitely will extend that moment of silence.
yeah, for sure. We can probably do it for like 30 seconds, bro.
All right.
Before I start now. All right.
Uh,
Yeah, man. Fly high, Britt.
yes,
Till we
rest
meet
in peace.
again. Rest in
Rest,
peace.
rest in peace.
Yeah.
So we're gonna get into some things, you guys. I thank you obviously for observing that moment of silence. On today's show, we're going to get right into it. We're going to be discussing a few topics. It's going to be our sports related podcast. We're going to touch base on two documentaries. First one being Something in the Water. Following that will be the Last Dance docu-series on Michael Jordan.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Both documentaries. Well, we'll start off with In the Water. That's local. In the Water, I thought it was great, bro. I had no real complaints with it. I really appreciated that. A documentary was put out there on such a major platform for the whole world to see. Because being from the area, we heard about the documentary being made like 2 years ago. Actually, one of my mentors actually in the documentary, Rick Goins,
Okay,
and
nice.
he was telling me about the process and everything going. Like he was showing me trailers from the movie,
Hmm.
like 2 years ago. So I'm thinking like, okay, this is going to be like a really like comprehensive history of each and every player that came from the area. But as time went on, he kind of gave me like some little insider information about it, saying that
Mm.
people will be upset after watching the movie, at least locally, because a lot of guys that are from the area that were good or legends weren't mentioned, and that was mainly because of the restrictions that were given by Showtime. Showtime wanted it to be a movie that encompassed the culture that gave way for a guy like Kevin Durant to be successful. You know what I'm saying? So
Absolutely.
going into watching it from that perspective, I thought the movie was spot on. I thought everything was great. The only thing that I may have had a little issue with was, I wish it was a little bit longer.
Hmm.
It's hard to put 60 years of history into 1 hour, and I wish that they would have touched on um, the the history of like Dr. Henderson and the father of basketball. That should have been a little bit longer as well. You know what I'm saying?
No, I
And
feel you there.
yeah, that's really it for me. I don't really have any other true complaints with the movie, man. I thought it was great, bro. I really enjoyed it, man.
Hey man, I couldn't agree more. I came in about 15 minutes late on the actual documentary, so I probably missed the first half of that for when it was talking about the doctor the doctor of basketball, if you will, Dr. Henderson.
Yeah,
And so from everything else, from what I was able to see, just how they really did a great job talking about the DMV culture from how we grew up hooping. I mean, everybody who, whether you hooped on the high school level, college level, anybody growing up in DC that hooped. I mean, this film really just spoke to like kind of what we knew, what we experienced growing up, and I just thought that they did a great job talking about the expansive history of it. Obviously, the huge rise in AAU basketball and what that meant for the area and the nation, and the exposure that it gained for so many locals.
yeah,
And I think, man, like, I'll defer to you on this topic for sure. I mean, obviously you were from Montgomery County, so not exactly PG, but like I said earlier, man, like the DMV area, you hooped in DC, you hooped throughout the whole DMV, you hooped in Maryland. It just really didn't matter. Like everybody kind of knew each other from different parts of the area. So,
yeah, for
you
sure.
know, you played collegiately, man. You are the expert, at least when I'm gonna defer to you when it comes to this, man. And I think you should give people a little bit more about your background as far as hooping is concerned, so they can know your qualifications when it comes to topics such as this.
Oh yeah, for sure, bro. I appreciate that, bro. All right, yeah. Quick rundown. Like you said, man, I'm from Silver Spring, Maryland, Montgomery County. I played high school ball at Northwood High School. After Northwood, I went to three colleges. I went to Seton Hill, out in Pennsylvania, as a D2 school. I transferred to UDC. That's where I graduated from. Another D2 school. At UDC, I was a second team all conference, averaged 19-9. Um, I was scholar athlete of the year. And then after that, I had a knee injury, so I redshirted my senior year, graduated, and I transferred to Savannah State. I did my grad year there, averaged 9 points, 5 rebounds a game there, and then after that, I went overseas for about 3 years. I played in Luxembourg, Paraguay. I played in Argentina. I played in their first and second division in Argentina, and then I finished up my pro career thus far in the G League. I was playing for the Delaware Bluecoats. So I've definitely basketball has taken me around the world and all over the country. So I've definitely had a chance to meet a lot of people, gain a lot of knowledge. You know what I'm saying? Like gain honest perspectives. You know what I'm saying, on the game itself. So when it comes to hoops, a lot of guys like to go off emotion and what they feel, what they don't feel. I like to keep things all facts and give honest opinions on stuff. You know what I'm saying? So
Most definitely.
yeah, for sure.
And so I think that I appreciate that quick biography, if you will, or timeline about your hooping experience, man. Because I just think like it just kind of ties into like back to like the documentary in terms of how everybody had their upbringing in the game of basketball in the DMV. Like I said, we saw like they touch on pretty much some of the great players that came through. And starting with, you could really call him the DMV's own Michael Jordan or LeBron James, and Len Bias, right? Like Len Bias
Mm-hmm.
was a very dominant athlete from this area
Mm-hmm.
who had a lot of promise. Obviously, who went to the world champion Boston Celtics, and you talking about a dynasty already in the NBA continuing on with the addition of Len Bias, and obviously people from this area and pretty much nationally, anyone who's into the sports understand the tragedy that befell him when he, tragically passed away the night he was drafted. Trying, celebrating, obviously trying cocaine, and really just highlighting that kind of epidemic, if you will, in the local area as far as drugs were concerned. And so,
Yeah,
um,
yeah. Nah, bro, man, that story, you know, of course, everyone from the area knows the story already because he's such a legend out here. But
right,
seeing it again, it like reopened the wound. Like it was like, damn, like just looking at him on film, looking at his physique, like he was a really stacked athlete. Jumping through the roof, had like you said, had a lot of promise. So seeing him, you know, die like that was so unfortunate because you could literally see the potential. Like he's going into as good a situation as any rookie could go into. You know what I'm saying,
absolutely,
man? And then, but on the same token, like his death, it's sad to say, his death kind of propelled the area into what it is today in terms of like the local officials being more aware of like what's going on out on the streets. So then that led to the creation of less street courts and more recreation centers to keep the kids outside of the streets. So that once you have kids going into recreation center, that right there in itself creates an environment of, you know, organized basketball. So you have kids that are playing organized ball, learning the game from a young age. So by the time they get to 15, 16, 17, they may be, you know, years ahead of their competition just from a experience standpoint because they've been playing
most
so much organized ball. So
most definitely,
so when I look at his death, I definitely think it's unfortunate, but at the same time, I think his death, was used in a positive way. So I really want to give a shout out to PG County for, saying taking that his death and then cascading that into something even bigger. You know what I'm saying? Because if that
absolutely.
if that would have happened, who's to say that PG County would have ended up being what it was without having all the rec centers available? You know what I'm saying? So it
I
was
definitely agree with you.
yeah, man. It was definitely some good that came out of that for sure.
Most definitely, and I just love the fact of how they kind of wove in like just the birth of I'm not familiar. I actually forgot the gentleman's name. I know he's serving time right now.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Um,
tomorrow, Curtis Malone.
yeah, Curtis Malone.
Yeah,
Like for for all his transgressions that he kind of ended up in that situation that he's in. Sticking strictly to the basketball point, I do think it's important. I do think it was important to highlight just kind of like what he was able to do in terms of really branding um, the DMV basketball culture in the sense of uh, translating that into dollars,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, for sure.
and getting that started.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. Curtis Malone, saying he's really the pioneer, in my opinion, well, pardon the pioneer, but he took like youth basketball in the city and took it to a whole new level because of the kind of talent that he had. Having a DeMar Johnson, having the Keith Bogans,
Yeah,
having Mike Beasley, having all these big name dudes that were ranked so high nationally, having them all come in like a 4 or 5 year span of each other. It kind of gave DC basketball that respect nationally. You feel what I'm saying?
most
Um,
definitely.
it's kind of funny that you even brought him up because even watching the documentary, I was wondering like, yo, why is Nolan Smith all over this documentary? I think Nolan probably had like what 20 minutes out of the out
Yeah,
of the out of the hour. I'm thinking like, damn, like why his part so long? Not saying he shouldn't be in the documentary because she definitely should be in there because he's a legend too. I just think that it was a little bit too much FaceTime with Nolan's. But overall, Curtis Malone, he's a staple in DC or DMV basketball. You know what I'm saying? You can't talk about DMV basketball and talk about the pros we have, especially recently, without, you know, bringing up Curtis Malone because Curtis Malone kind of gave the blueprint for programs like Takeover. You feel what I'm saying? So,
most definitely.
so Curtis Malone, he's really the godfather for real, you know what I'm saying, when it comes to that youth basketball scene nowadays.
And I love the fact that, even, just beyond the court, like a lot of times, when we talk about basketball and any sports, but I mean, and this kind of supersedes the DMV area, but like, sports is really a family environment. I mean, there's so many personal development skills you learn from playing team sports and basketball, and seeing like kind of the family spirit that Curtis kind of brought took in guys who had different situations going on in their families,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of brought them into like a more positive situation, just to kind of, everybody uses different things to kind of get through moments in their lives and things of that nature. So I thought it was cool for them to touch on that. But like, once we got to the meat of the documentary, talking about, I love the fact that they mentioned Go-Go. You know what
Oh
I'm
yeah.
saying? Like they had to bring in, that is DC. That is, and then, that's more DC than the DMV as a whole. But then you look at as far as the bands, as when we were in high school, man, I mean, everybody had a band from Mount Maryland, from VA. Like, I mean, Go-Go really just took over. So I love the fact, and I think Mike Beasley kind of stole the documentary over when it
Oh
was
yeah.
just like his storytelling was much more less politically, not to say that people had politically correct interviews, but like Beasley was just a guy like, that's like a guy that you probably see on the street today and just that grew up in that area, in that era, and just like, give it to you just raw what it was. I thought he just did a great job.
Oh yeah, man. I think Mike Beasley definitely stole the show, man. He was the energy that we wanted locally. He was what we wanted to see on screen. We want to see people talking like that, talking, off the cuss from the heart,
Yeah,
and
talking that shit.
talking that shit, man. I really feel like Mike Beasley, he definitely stole the show. It's kind of funny too, because like, leading up to the documentary, people saw the cover and people hit me like, yo, why is Mike Beasley on the cover of this documentary? Like Mike Beasley trash. I'm like, yo, y'all must not know who the fuck Mike Beasley is. First of
Right.
all, Mike Beasley's a motherfucking beast. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
they look at NBA. Some guys look at what your career was in the league, and they don't
Exactly.
really understand like that's completely different from where you grew up at and what level you was on at the time.
I'm
And
telling you, bro. Mike Beasley, he was all Met first team as a sophomore in high school, in 10th grade. You know what I'm saying? And then, he was ranked number one in the country for like a couple of years. I think he finished like number three in the
mm,
'07 class. '07 class had Eric Gordon, D Rose, Kyle Singer. I don't think Kyle Singer.
yeah,
I think Kevin Love was in that class too. Like they
hmm
had yeah, hella pros in the '07 class. And then on top of that, he had one of the top 10 greatest freshman seasons of all time, averaging like 28 and 10 at Kansas State. You feel what I'm
yeah,
saying?
he was a beast.
He's,
Yeah,
he's
he was
like,
a
come on
beast.
now, Mike Beasley. You talking about top five guys from the area all the time? You
Facts.
you, you got to put him in there. Him, KD, DeMar Johnson. You know what I'm saying? Len Bias, those four to me are automatic locks. The fifth person is a toss up. You can probably throw Walt Williams in there, Monty Williams in
hmm
there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, Steve
Steve
Francis in
Francis
there.
in there, which also Steve Francis' story is kind of interesting too, because Steve is from Tacoma Park, right?
hmm
So at first I'm like, yo, Tacoma is in Montgomery County.
Right,
Steve went into Blair, which is in Silver Spring. You feel what I'm saying?
right.
And then I did some research. I found out that Tacoma Park was a part of PG County up until 1995, and
Ah,
Steve was class of '93, right? So
got you.
so
Makes sense.
so most of his high school career or hooping career up to high school was in PG County. But then I looked up even further because Steve is from Maple Avenue. So
hmm
at that point, before it became all Montgomery County, there was two sides of Tacoma Park that was Montgomery County and then PG County. And Steve was lived on the Montgomery County side, but I feel like with the documentary, him being such a marquee name and him having such a close history to PG, you just throw him in there just because of who he is. You know what I'm saying? But
Oh, for
a
sure.
lot of people were upset. Like, oh, they got a Montgomery County dude talking in the PG County documentary, talking about.
Well,
I'm like, yo, people tripping. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? It's crazy, bro.
yeah, we all seem to get sensitive sometimes about where exactly you from. You know how it go. You from DC. Niggas say they from the DMV. They from DC, or they say they from DC. Really from Virginia. But like this documentary was really just highlighting this area's history of basketball. So I
Yeah,
feel like when it comes to something like that, that's very minuscule. And to
yeah,
your point, there's going to be guys who felt left out. I mean, that's anytime you do a documentary. I mean, hell, we about to talk about the MJ doc after this, and there's plenty of guys who felt like they were left out or feel like they didn't get enough shine, and that's just typical of whenever you're doing any type of project. There's going to be people that agree and people that don't agree with it, and so I thought it was still very well done. I thought it, like you said, I would have loved to seen it be a little bit longer, touch a little bit more topics. But I mean, and we'd be remiss, if we didn't mention, the greatness or the greatest player currently, obviously from this area, and Kevin Durant, and
oh
just
yeah,
his development, and just seeing how he shined. I mean, he was winning MVPs back in back when he was like 11, 12 years old. So
mm-hmm.
he was doing it. Mike Beasley said, I used to get like 20 rebounds a game even back then and just pass it to KD. He said he was doing the same thing that he was doing now, which is you think about. He's like, man, it's just crazy. Like, it just developed to be a bucket getter, and
Yeah, yeah, man. It's really dope to see. Like you said, man, it makes you proud because we can legit say that we have one of the top 10 talents ever to ever
oh,
pick
facts.
up a basketball. You know what I'm saying? Who's to say by the time his career ends? I already have him in my top 10, but pretty soon the consensus will have KD the top 10 players all time, and to be able to say that he's from this area and he's somewhat accessible, like you can see KD around. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, for sure.
It gives you a different kind of feeling in terms of like being proud and being what I'm saying, like happy to be where you're from.
Man, it definitely was just a great overall documentary, man, and I'm proud of it. I hope to see, some the continued growth of this area's basketball players. I have no doubt. I mean, one thing about this area that I think what helps us grow, what helps us going to continue its continued growth, excuse me, is just um, the competitive fire within guys. Like guys in these areas, it's different growing up here, man. Like the competitive spirit is always high. There's always something to prove, and I'm not saying that doesn't take place in obvious other areas, but I think it's proven throughout history that the DMV has something. We possess that thing that's in your chest that just continues to make you strive for greatness. So hopefully they can we can continue on that legacy and see not just the men's side being shown. We definitely want to continue to see more of the women's exposure
Mm-hmm.
in the documentary, because I mean women have contributed a great deal
Mm-hmm.
in this area as well. So definitely want to see both sides continue to grow.
Oh yeah, definitely, man. And also shout out to there was a guard from Maryland University that just got drafted. I think her name was I don't think I'm saying it right, but I'll just say it anyway. Either Kayla or Kalia Charles. She
Okay.
got drafted this year to the Connecticut Suns. So shout out to her. She's from PG County as well. So
Shout out.
yeah, man. Shout out to Lindsey Spawn. She played at South Carolina. She just got a coaching job at UMD as well. So this is just two quick examples of women that are doing great within basketball, whether it's playing and going on pro, or playing and then going into coaching. There's a lot of women from the area, man, that do great things that go unnoticed, man. So definitely want to give a shout out to them and all the other women that are here doing their thing too. You know,
most definitely, man. And so as we get ready to transition here into the Michael Jordan 10-part docu-series.
yes,
Now,
sir.
we have let's see here. We've heard a lot. We've seen a lot in these 10 episodes. I guess it's not really a documentary. I think we can all agree this was more like an autobiography by
Yeah,
Michael Jordan.
low, yeah, high key, bro.
Mike, and look, Mike talked his shit, and I think it was great because we never seen Mike be so open,
Yeah,
from a like Mike has always been more of a polished guy in terms of when he speaks to the media and what he says. And I think what we was able to see, I mean, listen, man, Mike, one thing you gotta respect as you get older, you start to give less and less of a fuck. That's one thing for sure.
yeah, more,
Like
yeah, for sure, bro. No doubt about it. No doubt about it,
yeah,
bro. And
yeah.
I think it was very dope. You know what I'm saying? Not the documentary did not change my opinion of Michael Jordan, but
Same.
it definitely was from a basketball fan perspective. It was great to see it. You know, to see the little details that we may have missed or that I've known. You know what I'm saying? Like the stuff with Dennis Rodman or with like Scott Burrell or with
Oh
you know
man.
what I'm saying, like, or with the security guards, stuff like that. Or even the flu game in the last episode not really being a
Yeah.
flu, with it being food poisoning. So a lot of things that we didn't necessarily know the details of were shown, and I really thought it was a great movie, man. A great 10-part series or whatever you call it, docu series, whatever. It was great. You know what I'm saying? But what I don't like though
Okay.
are the Michael Jordan super fans. You know what I'm saying? Where they take this documentary as an opportunity to shit on other greats, not necessarily other greats, more so LeBron James. Because
I was about to say, man, be
you know
specific,
what I'm
man.
saying?
Don't
Yeah,
duck the wreck, man.
yeah, man. They take it as a direct shot at my man LeBron, which you already know how I feel. I feel like LeBron
What's
is,
that?
you know, the best player ever. Not the greatest, but the best. I always have two different definitions for greatest and best. So, what I'm saying, with greatness, to not make it too long winded, greatness to me is about your influence and impact on the game. And being the best is about your mastery of the game. So, with that said, Jordan made basketball and the NBA global. You feel what I'm saying? But
Nah, I feel you.
he's more versatile in terms of his offense and defense. So him being able to score with the best of them, pass with the best of them, play defense with the best of them, and also be bigger, faster, and stronger, being a better athlete overall than Jordan. To me, just from that perspective, I give him the nod. You know what I'm saying? But Jordan is still a fucking beast. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like people take it wrong. Where like if you say someone else is better, you're saying someone else's shitty. But that's not the case at all. I think Jordan is a great player. I don't think he encompasses what it means to be a basketball player in totality more so than LeBron. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, and like for me personally, I think Mike said it best. I think Mike actually truly believes this. Mike once said, he doesn't believe you can say he's the best player of all time because it's a disrespect to the guys who played in their eras. He's like, all you could do is dominate and try your best to be the best of your era that in which you played. He didn't play against LeBron, so saying he's better than LeBron, I mean, it's always going to be subjective. Same thing that I think Kobe says. Like Kobe, I would listen to Kobe, and I think Kobe had it right too when he mentioned just like you get to a point, and you're like, I did what I did when I played, and that's just what it is. Like you can debate whatever you want to debate, but like I'm a 5-time champ, like my credentials and what I did speaks for themselves. So you could debate subjectively, well, he's the best, or he would have done this and done that. So I don't like to really compare LeBron to Jordan. I mean, I get why it's going to always rage on, but then it's like to your point is when you refer to the definition of greatness, I think you add into not just like your influence, but greatness is your dominance too for the era for where you play too, and I think that's what Mike has that makes him quote the greatest because he dominated and his influence changed what we knew as not just what it meant to be a basketball player, but what it meant to be an athlete. And I just think to your point, this docu series about Mike really just showed his greatness, and it showed flaws. Like I would say, for as much as people try to say that it was a shining moment for Mike, I think they touched on a lot of things that he never talked about. His gambling problems. And guys like Mike, I mean, when you're making that much bread, I mean, is it really, gambling ain't really shit. But I think they did talk about his gambling issue, his issue with his leadership style. Not everybody is going to take being dominated in a certain way or treated like shit, in other words, as well, or as some of his teammates did. But he got a rise out of them, and the results were 6 championships, two three-peats. And so I think the docu series did a great job of just illuminating who Michael Jordan was as a player.
No, definitely, bro. I definitely agree with you. I think, kind of to piggyback off what you said, man, a lot of people, look at Jordan from what I heard, look at Jordan after the documentary and say, damn, he was an asshole, or damn, he was this, or damn, he was that. And sometimes you just gotta be who you are unapologetically and just, live and die with the results, man. And for Jordan, that definitely turned out in his favor, you know what I'm saying, winning six rings, in the fashion that he did it. I think, in terms of like LeBron and the comparison, like you said, I mean, we'll never truly really know. You feel what I'm saying? And everyone
Right.
will have their opinion on it, And like you said with the dominance piece, I think LeBron's dominance isn't necessarily more so like on the court in terms of like an individual season or 2 or 3 seasons where he's just head and shoulders above everyone. I think LeBron's dominance comes from his longevity, him being able to be, either the top player or a top 3 player for, 16 straight seasons, 17 straight seasons. You know what I'm saying? And to be honest, there's really no. If you be honest, LeBron could literally play till he's like in his 20th 21st season, kind of like a Vince Carter, and still be considered a top 5, top 10 player. So I think that's where LeBron James' dominance lies, but that's not necessarily as appreciated in terms of the masses as compared to Jordan, where he had, 4, 5, 6 seasons where he just on top killing everybody. You know what I'm saying?
Most def. So I got a question for you. So I guess the next question, kind of a good one, would be, who do you think looked bad in this docu series? Like, who you think looked bad, and who you think who came out looking a little bit better than you would expect?
Uh, Someone that came out looking better than I expected was Dennis Rodman for sure. It,
Dennis was a winner
Dennis was
all the
a
way
winner
around.
all the way around, bro. The fact he left after was that game 2 or game 3, went to go wrestle with the NWO, and then came back and played in the finals, dog. That to me was epic, bro. And then him just saying like, I try to hoop and hit girls, man. That's basically it. Bro, that's
I mean, to be honest, that's what a lot of athletes do it
oh
for.
yeah, for sure. Like no doubt about it, man. So I think he definitely came out looking better than I thought. I thought he would. And then someone who looked bad. Uh, they they kind of made Scottie Pippen look bad. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree with that.
They made Scottie look bad, and also I would say like some parts of the movie made MJ look bad too, bro. In my opinion,
No,
you know,
I
you know what
agree.
I'm saying. I think it's those two. Like MJ and Scottie came out looking worse than they did going in. You know what I'm saying? And I say that on Jordan's behalf because of his silence when it came to that senator race in North Carolina.
Yep.
Him picking on Scott Burrell, calling him a bitch in the hole, stuff like that. Him talking to Steve Kerr all kinds of ways. Just his attitude around the team, and then with Scottie Pippen, they made it seem like Scottie was selfish, and really Scottie was protecting his interests. That's the same thing that we praise athletes nowadays for, KD, LeBron, Kyrie, you know what I'm saying, Paul George, Kawhi, being able to try to control your narrative, control your situations as much as possible. But when a player like Pippen does it, and that's against, Michael Jordan's interest, Scottie's selfish. If you think about it, in the '98 season, Jordan was getting paid $33 million, whereas Scottie was getting paid $2.9 million, bro.
Yeah,
That's
it's a
crazy.
tough. That's very crazy. First of all, you know that like it's a lot of situations that were touched that you brought up. So I'll go back and answer the question that I asked you, and then I'll touch on a few things. But I definitely agree with you on your answers. I think Dennis looked great. I think Phil Jackson looked great.
Oh
I
yeah,
think
for sure.
Phil, people don't think Phil did a lot, but Phil understood the number one thing in which any leader of a business, whether it be a CEO or whatever, you just understand personality and managing personality. And
Yeah,
that's a huge thing. And I think if you look at even Steve Kerr in today's coaching, like he understands that as well. Like, right. Like he understand, like he said he picked up a lot of that from Phil. So I thought Phil looked great. I thought Dennis looked great. Like I said, Dennis had Carmen Electra. I mean, I know she was like I know a lot of people probably like Carmen Electra. She ain't all that. She. I mean, back then she was popping.
yeah,
Like
for
I'm
sure. Yeah, she was
saying,
definitely
you know,
like cream of the crop back then, bro. No question.
yeah, So and again, we talking about Dennis Rodman. This is a guy who married himself. You know what I'm saying? Like this is a guy who he was wilding
Yeah.
and he had no, and Mike and Scotty and Phil, they knew they needed him. I mean, the guy averaged 20 rebounds a lot of seasons, and he did a lot of positive effort plays for them that they wouldn't have been able to win without him in that second run. So
Yeah.
definitely agree with you there. Now, I agree Scotty looked bad and it's kind of weird because you would think that with MJ having the final say on a lot of the editing on that docu-series that you kind of would have tried to make Scotty look a little bit better. I mean, he did come out and say, which I think is the ultimate compliment that can be paid to Scotty, which was, I don't win anything without Scotty Pippen. Like that's a huge compliment to say
Mm-hmm.
to a guy, considering how great Jordan was, and considering one would argue, could he have gotten at least one championship without Scottie Pippen? Scottie Pippen is like, you know, you could argue that, but to say, I owe him my six championships, I mean, that's to me, there's no bigger compliment. But I think Scotty looked bad, when they showed him not going into the game, obviously with 1.8 seconds left
Mm-hmm.
in the Eastern Conference Finals. I think he looked pretty bad when he said he, even though I feel him when he was like, he delayed surgery because he didn't want to, fuck up his summer, in having that surgery. And so I understand Scotty. I also think another guy that looked terrible, and obviously he wasn't there to defend himself, was Jerry Krause.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I mean, he's a guy, and we see this a lot in society where guys ego trip. I want to take a moment. This is going to distract our audience from what we're talking about, but we didn't even mention, for those of you who don't know, we are two men, a part of the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity
Yes,
Incorporated,
sir. Root to the bruh.
Root to the
Root to the
Bros.
bruhs.
And I just brought that up because first of all, it just needs to be said.
Yeah, definitely need to be said, bro. No doubt about it.
But and also we need to bring that up because MJ is the bros as
Oh
well.
yeah.
And we need to
Oh yeah.
we need to shout out our frat brother as well,
Mm-hmm.
which we should have done.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but in addition to that, though, just more so like, a lot of times, man, ego, we also understand as far as being in our frat, like what ego can do for you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And Jerry Krause, ego got in the way of greatness, continued greatness. Now, a lot of people say, "Oh, could they have done it?" You just don't know. The point is to say the man could go 82-0 before a season, and I don't care, you still will let him go.
Sheesh.
Is I mean, it's like that's crazy. Like
That's
that's the
insane,
biggest
bro.
ego
That right there, I'm thinking like, bro, like what type of time are y'all on, bro? You know what I'm saying? Like,
trip.
what? You gonna let go of the best coach in the league at that point? Like damn near like it's really Phil, Jerry Sloan, Popovich.
And
You know
great,
what I'm
yeah,
saying? Chuck. I don't think Chuck Daly was coaching that late in the '90s, but anyways,
yeah,
Phil was a top coach, bro. You know what I'm saying? And you gonna say that to him? That made no sense to me, bro. And I think you're right, man. Jerry Krause definitely looked horrible. You know what I'm saying? Like even when they were like berating him, like when Scotty was like cursing him out on the bus about his contract and stuff like that. Which also, I want to touch on this point too, with how like people were saying like, oh, that '98 team, if they would have came back the '99 year, they would have won the championship because the CBA had changed, or in that it
hmm
was a 50 game season. And I
right,
was thinking, I'm like, look, y'all got to really give context a chance to breathe in these hypotheticals, because if we think about it, the salary cap in '98 was 40 million. The salary cap in '99 was 42 million. I think that was the year after they agreed on the CBA before it came to effect. So in '99, the cap was 42 million, right? Jordan just made
right.
33 million the year before. He's eating up the biggest portion of the cap. You think, yeah, after y'all just stole money from Scottie Pippen's mouth in his eyes, with that 5 year, $17 million deal, he's gonna come back? You know what I'm saying? You think
Yeah, Scotty.
like from a business standpoint, it would have made no sense to bring them back and have to pay all that money and luxury tax just to get one more ring. You feel what I'm saying? Like it would
That's
have
facts.
it would have hurt the business more so long term. But then also to that fact, like when people were talking about how Scotty was underpaid, man, those contracts back then were like that. Guys weren't signing 1 year, 2 year deals, 3 year deals. You know what I'm saying? Like, for example, Magic Johnson signed a 20-year deal back in the '80s, bro. 20 years. You feel what
Yep,
I'm saying? So,
yep.
and I looked it up at the time that Scotty got his deal. That was an extension upon his rookie deal. He just happened to outplay his extension. You feel what I'm saying? And
And to that.
no,
Oh,
no,
go
go
ahead.
ahead, go ahead,
I'm
go ahead.
sorry. I was gonna say just touch on the fact that to that point though, like, and that's what happens in negotiations and like circumstance and like just security, right? So like Scotty wanted that security. Scotty didn't come from a family where, $17 million guaranteed is $17 million guaranteed, right?
Yeah,
Like, people can say whatever they want. Like, shit, somebody offer you a contract right now for $17 million, even though you might outperform that, you might be like, man, that's 17 though.
no,
Like,
real
you
talk.
know what I'm saying? So you're gonna take that. And so I think what Scotty did, and even to Jerry Reinsdorf, the owner, to his credit, he said, I wouldn't sign this deal. Not because I don't want to pay you, but I feel like you have a chance to outperform it. And that's what he told him. But at the time, like I said, Scotty had a larger family than Mike to take care of. I mean, he come from I think both something was going on with both of his parents. And so I'm not saying I agree. They should have redid the deal.
Oh yeah,
Like, you know
yeah,
what I'm
no
saying? Like
question.
they should have definitely redid the deal. I mean, you don't pay like, and if I'm Jordan, one thing you don't ever do, and as any man, we don't speak on another man's money. You know what I'm
Nah,
saying? Like,
facts.
I'm not going to tell you what I think another man deserves. Like, that ain't none of, like, I think, you should pay him what he's worth, and, what you worth is subjective by what somebody's willing to pay you, period.
Yeah,
Um, and so, but I do think it's important to note that Scotty did sign those deals for security purposes and wasn't as much as to be like, okay, man, we just gonna lowball you. It was more like, I wouldn't sign this deal because I feel like you have an opportunity to supersede it. And like I said, also people got to remember, Mike for years before he started signing them 1 year deals was underpaid. I
underpaid like
mean,
a
you talking
motherfucker,
about the
bro.
face.
What?
I mean, you talking about the face of sports. Now, the
Nah,
only
real
reason why
shit.
his bag wasn't hurting was because of Nike and the everything about what he was doing off the court, Gatorade, Hanes, like but you had to get that bread in order to succumb to being able to get that bread on the court because like nowadays, and this is what I will say, going back to just touch on another, like you brought up an issue with Mike speaking up on social issues for the black community when in the Senate race in North Carolina. That is a very poignant point. But I've heard and I thought about some other things that are valid points as well. And I want to know your thoughts on this. So, like, we praise LeBron because of his social activism and his stances on speaking out on these things, and I think we should definitely commend him for it. But I do think it's important to note back when Mike was asked to kind of take these stands, his bag wasn't secure like LeBron's bag is now. Like you got to remember, LeBron probably was over like a millionaire by the time he was 17. Mike and them wasn't getting that bag where because once you got your money, you could talk. You could talk big shit because you got your bread. Like you ain't, and it's not like I'm not saying like it's like somebody bought your voice, but I will also ask you to remember the fact of when just recently when the NBA had the tensions with the Houston Rockets, saying some stuff about the Daryl Morey saying something about Chinese and the Chinese people, and then LeBron kind of being like, "I got $1 billion over there," like, and he kind of backed off of those remarks a little bit, kind of because it's kind of like when it comes to business, I don't want y'all messing up my bread. And it's something to be said for securing your bag and being able to be comfortable and confident about speaking out, knowing that you got your money. Back when a time when Mike it was that that wasn't his thing, but it was also he didn't have that bag secured at that particular time to kind of necessarily speak out and feel comfortable doing so. I want to know your thoughts.
Let me see. What year was that center race? What year? What year was
Uh,
it? Let me look it up.
right.
Last Dance, because that's gonna really tell or give me like the thing I'm thinking about to say. Let's see. Oh, what the heck?
I can't think if that was the 80s. I can't think
Jesse
that would have to be
Helms.
like
Let me see. Jesse Helms, Michael Jordan. Let's see.
this was before he won this championship though. So it had to be like was it the late 80s?
If it was the late eight, I'm trying to figure out the year that this. Okay, this was 1990.
1990. Okay.
1990.
Okay.
Let's see what Michael Jordan was doing by 1990, bro. Cause,
Okay.
Cause I do understand your point in terms of like having discernment with speaking out as an athlete, because sometimes that shit can shoot you in the foot, i.e., Colin Kaepernick. But that's a whole different topic for a whole another day.
Oh yeah,
But
for sure.
let's see, by 1990, Jordan had led the league in scoring one, two, three times already, averaging 37, 35, 32, 34 by the time 1990. And I'm thinking the election was that summer. So, yeah. So, by that point, he was already a, what, six-time All-Star
He,
by that point. So, Jordan was already the man. You know what I'm saying? So, I think Jordan's leverage as an athlete, you know what I'm saying, kind of outweighed his, like you said, I'm not going to count on a man's pockets, but I don't think Michael Jordan's pockets would have been in danger because of how well he was as a player. You know what I'm saying? Like if you are the number one player in your sport, you're the most popular draw to this game, to this brand. You know what I'm saying? You have a little more leverage to say things, even though the money necessarily may not be secure. But if I am not mistaken, I feel like Jordan already had one of the most popular shoes at that time because that's when he started having documentaries with not documentary, with commercials with not Scotty, with Spike Lee.
Spike
You
Lee.
know, the
Mm-hmm.
movie Do the Right Thing already came out, I think like 80 or 89, where Jordan 3 was like one of the most popular shoes. So Jordan was already like entering his apex as an athlete because just 2 years later, he was the biggest thing in the world in terms of like globally. So I think Jordan I don't give him the excuse to not speak because of his his interest in terms of his money, because he has so much leverage as a performer. You know what I'm saying? I can't give him that leeway because there are guys that have done it before him that didn't have nearly as much money or didn't have nearly as much security per se, but still stood up for the rights of black folks. And but I've also come to grips in terms with how ironic it is, and the irony of this is this that Michael Jordan just didn't care. You know what I'm saying? He just
But also let's take that from a don't care. Like so I just like to play devil's advocate to get the good conversation rolling. So like I look at it and say, well, we praise the Muhammad Ali's, the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's, the Jim Browns for doing. They actually not just only had a conscious awareness for Black people's issues, they also were educated on being able to speak out on some of those things. Um, Playing devil's advocate, as great as a player Michael Jordan was on the basketball court and as an entertainer, who's to say his education as far as being able to eloquently express himself in those ways was his thing. You know, I think sometimes with athletes, and to your point, I know that with great power and with great privilege should come great responsibility. But what we have to understand is athletes, we're asking them to entertain us. And I agree with you. I'm not saying that I don't agree with the points that you make, because I actually do. I do believe Michael should have spoken up during that Senate race, specifically when you understand who he was going up against, and what the I forgot what the other gentleman, whatever the white guy was, but what he represented. I do think Michael should have put his, but to his point though, Michael, even in the docu-series, right, he said he donated. His mom said you should talk. And to that point, I think there's a lot of things with athletes, and this is like goes into another topic. Like sometimes as black folks, like if you don't march, if we don't agree in this, like on certain subjects that we tend to feel that we all should agree on, we kind of get ostracized in a certain way. And so I can understand Michael's point when he mentioned in the docuseries, you want me to go speak up for this guy that I don't even know. Like, yeah, I know what the other guy represents, but I don't know this guy that you want me to endorse. So I'll send some money to his campaign. Who knows how much bread it was or whatever the case may be. But I can understand and respect. And I think this is where dialogue and this is where, to your point, to my point, as far as being educated, like comes into play, because he's like, I don't even know dude. Like you want me to endorse somebody that I don't even know what he represents in terms of, like, let's say I endorse him. Next thing you know, they get, they bust down and and he's get caught up on some drug charges the next day. You know what I'm saying? Just hypothetically speaking. And so I'm not making any excuses for Mike, because I think Mike, to your point, maybe he just didn't care. Maybe he just wasn't educated enough on the situations to be, and that's where you put LeBron over Michael in those statures, that LeBron has at least educated himself in certain angles to be able to express himself that way. Not everybody is built like that, though,
I
with
mean,
respect.
honestly, bro, I don't give Michael that leeway, man. Michael is a college educated man. He comes from a two-parent household. Both of them were respectable parents, so I'm sure that they raised him the right way. And
Mm-hmm.
if you don't know someone, especially that's someone that's running for your state, you get to know them and see exactly what they're about. But just to say, "Oh, I don't know, cuz I'm gonna throw him some money to his campaign," that to me is a little bit irresponsible, because you know sometimes your voice is worth more than money. You feel what I'm saying? Sometimes your voice can be what propels someone else to want to be involved in the community, and that can end up being you know something good. Um, you know what
Very
I'm
good point.
saying? I think about it. Michael Jordan he probably is the most popular black person in American history, bro, to be honest. So, whatever Mike said at those times, people did. If Mike said drink Gatorade, they're drinking Gatorade. If Mike said eat McDonald's, they eat McDonald's. You feel what I'm saying? So if Mike said,
Mm-hmm.
look at this social issue, you can almost guarantee that people would do so. And Mike wouldn't have been ostracized in terms of being blackballed by the league, because he was the league. You know what I'm saying? If y'all blackball Michael, then there is no NBA. You know what I'm saying? Because the NBA just started doing live games when Michael started to win championships. You know what I'm saying? So to me, I'm like, okay, Michael, I don't give him that leeway because guys did it in worse conditions. You know what I'm saying? Like in the early '60s, '50s, whatever, early '70s. You know, I don't give Michael that leeway. But you know, I just find it ironic that the most popular black person in history wasn't or didn't necessarily or wasn't indifferent towards politics. It's just ironic that that's the case. But you know, nevertheless, man, people shouldn't hang their political awareness on the voices of athletes or entertainers or whoever. They should have you know interest in that themselves because we live in a society where our everyday lives are affected by politics. You know what I'm saying? So it
Absolutely.
shouldn't take an athlete to say, "Hey, vote for you to go vote." You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And I think, like I said, I think the docu series it did a good job of addressing that, and that was its flaws. These type of conversations were the conversations that, and you think about that, just goes to show how dominantly popular and his effect on culture he had. Because had that been just a normal black athlete who was subpar at what they did, they might have never recovered from that from the black community. You
Not
know what
real
I'm
sure.
saying? But when he performed the way that he did and continued to dominate the way that he did, it didn't even matter. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, we saw like the fact that this man, like the crowds of people that lined up to just see this man are that was phenomenal to see. And the age of like no social media, like the age of where like you don't know where this man is going to be at and still have those crowds of people. And I think one of the great things that Michael did at least do, and I think this goes back to your point as far as being educated, Michael was wise enough to surround himself with older people who he saw wisdom. He had his dad, and before the tragedy befell his father, he started to just encapsulate himself with older, wiser people to kind of provide guidance for him. And to that point, you would think that maybe and like I said, not everybody's. And what I will say, to not again go to Michael's defense with it, in terms of him verbally speaking out, sometimes, like I said, LeBron has that gift, and I'm not going to criticize me personally. While I agree with, again, I truly agree with everything you said. I can't criticize everybody for not having a gift to be able to eloquently speak up on things like that. Do I think they should? Do I think you should educate yourself to be able to do so when you have that type of platform? I do. I just believe that that's a civic responsibility, if you
Yeah.
will. But not everybody has that. Not everybody has that, and so I think one of the telling things that Michael Jordan said in this docu series, which was also fascinating to me, was that he said, "If I had to do it all over again, I don't know if I would be a role model."
Mm.
Um, and he said, because it's like a game that's already stacked against me. And when he said that, I mean, you really have to think like, wow. Like, I mean, again, you're talking about what could potentially be the most popular black man in the history of America, saying he don't even know if he would want to be a role model because of what people started to try to pick holes against everything that he did or did not do.
Mm.
And then again, you think about that, man. You think, and I give people credit to the standpoint like there's so many annals that you can talk about because this was pre-social media too. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
So
Like,
I'm trying to figure out
you know what I'm saying?
how do people pick holes when you know what I'm saying they can't you're not even that accessible. You know what I'm saying compared to nowadays. I mean, I do feel like from a empathy standpoint, a human standpoint, I can understand like yeah, I understand like being a role model can be tough. But there are certain things that I feel like that are above our personal feelings, especially when it comes to black folks in America, bro. Like, there's a certain kind of responsibility. Like if you're not gonna speak on stuff or on certain issues, then don't speak at all. You know what I'm saying? but don't pick and choose on when you're gonna speak on stuff and how you're gonna speak on stuff, or you know, don't come out and say, well, Republicans wear sneakers too. Like, if you're not gonna be involved, don't be involved in anything. You feel what I'm saying? I feel like if you're not gonna be involved at all, then don't. If you're gonna be involved in a little bit, then you gotta be involved all the way. You know what I'm saying? There can't be any lukewarm um, participation in my eyes for black athletes, man. So with that said, I think Jordan, he definitely showed more of his human side in the documentary, and I appreciate him for doing that. But there's certain things that for me just don't sit right, man. That's probably the main thing. Like, you know what I'm saying? Cool, you don't want to be a role model, but you are. You know what I'm saying? So what you gonna do for the kids that are looking up to you? You know what I'm saying? Like that right there is a side of being an athlete that we don't necessarily talk about too much, at least nowadays, man. Like, although athletes, entertainers get too much credit in terms of like what kids want to be, but that's by
Hmm.
design. That's what we see on TV. Like we don't see lawyers on TV all the time. We don't see doctors. We don't see pharmacists. We don't see policemen on TV unless they're shooting somebody. You know what I'm saying? We don't see those positive images. You know what I'm saying? We only see them as
Well, you
athletes
gotta.
and entertainers. So you know,
Well,
now
yeah,
go ahead.
Charles Barkley actually once said, you know, I'm not a role model. Role model should be your parents. Role models should be people that seeing in your community doing good on a day-to-day basis. It is tough. I mean, I think to your point, we have to remember these athletes, and it is a lot of pressure. And again, there's no empathy or sympathy, or shall I say, there's empathy, but there's not a lot of sympathy for guys making millions of dollars who are complaining about their lives being in the
Right.
spotlight. But we have to understand that at the same time, we have to have empathy for the fact that these are a lot of times very young men coming from situations where they don't really have it all together in the first place, making millions of dollars, being asked to be the face of a corporation, essentially, right? Face of a franchise. And it's not much, it's easy to just be a guy in the league where you're not asked to do all these things. And again, this is where you credit a guy like LeBron James, who has held a standard model of excellence from an image standpoint. I think the only thing you can negatively say about him, in contrast to like the way he's handled situations than Jordan, was really just the decision when he decided to leave. I mean, how he kind of did that. I mean, that's about the only negative thing that people can say about his image since he's been in the league. And so, again, like just when you talk about these things, the documentary highlighted just different things that we could look at Michael and say, well, I thought you should have did this. He could have done this better. But I think overall, he, I appreciate him sitting down for this docu series and being honest about, people. He spoke his truth. And I don't think it's the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
Hell no.
I mean, that was his truth. But I saw something today where Horace Grant kind of spoke back about what was some of the stuff. But with other Bulls, and this is just fact, and this is the part where in life things are not created equal or fair, and to some degree will never be. No one would have cared about the Bulls if it wasn't for Michael Jordan.
Hmm.
So it's like, of course, Michael Jordan is going to have a larger platform to speak his truth, and his truth is going to come across a lot louder and stronger and believable than another guy's truth that could be that could be more of the truth. But it's not, you're not the central piece to this story, and so it's just not going to matter as much. And so I think that, but that's just a part of life, like that's something that I think that's something that the docu-series highlight. I mean, there's a lot of guys, like they said, who didn't necessarily like the way that they were portrayed in it. But again, the central character was the guy who signed off on the footage. And like I said, I still thought, with all of that being said, it was the greatest sports documentary that I had seen. I thought that the storytelling, kind of the suspense, just the video footage of what they was able to show from back then with Mike and the practice footage. I thought it all was just relative and talking to, and really describing who he was as a person, which was somewhat of an asshole. Um, a lot of probably was an asshole. A lot of it was a guy who just was determined to win at all costs. And unfortunately, it worked. I mean, it worked. But at what cost did it work for some of his personal relationships and things of that nature? Only him and his teammates really know the answers to those things. But overall, um, like I said, very well done docu series on Michael Jordan about Michael, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, I definitely thought it was a good documentary. Definitely well done. I wouldn't say for me personally, it's not the best sports documentary or the best basketball documentary that I've seen. Like, stuff that comes to mind off top is like, you know, Hoop Dreams, Through the Wire.
Okay.
Those two to me are better than The Last Dance. I feel like The Last Dance, of course, because it's Michael Jordan. The Last Dance is focusing on, like we said before, the most popular human black person in American history, arguably. You know what I'm saying? Definitely the most popular basketball player ever. So, when you have him being the center point, then, just his gravitational pull is going to outweigh a Sebastian Telfair story, a Arthur Ashe story from Chicago. You know what I'm saying? Like those stories are not going to have the
Mm-hmm.
same kind of weight. But to me, those documentaries are better because of the raw insight and the transparency that they provide the viewer. Now, with the like you said, with Michael Jordan and him coming out being an asshole, I mean that's basically what it is. You know what I'm saying? Like kind of like how Obama put it best. Michael Jordan changed the appeal for black athletes. People literally, when they say be like Mike, people literally wanted to be like this man because of how aggressive his personality was. So, you know what I'm saying? Like Michael Jordan was what you wanted to say or who you wanted to be, but you couldn't because you got a job or because, you know what I'm saying, you got other things that are more prioritized than you just being bashful, you just saying stuff off the cuff. So people gravitate towards that, and they develop a sort of a psychological attachment to this image. You know what I'm saying? And that's why
Absolutely.
the nostalgia of Michael Jordan is so strong that anything that comes close to, I guess, threatening his image, people are gonna fight you on it. You know what I'm saying? Like people can't even appreciate the greatness of other players after Jordan without mentioning Jordan's name. You feel what I'm saying? Like people can't
Yep.
say stuff about LeBron or Kobe Bryant or KD without saying, oh, but they good, but they ain't LeBron, they ain't Michael Jordan. KD is one of the best scorers ever, but Jordan averaged 45 today. Uh, you know, Kobe got 5 rings, but Jordan got 6. And everything that that Kobe did came from Jordan, or you know, uh, LeBron left his team and came back to his team and built a team. Jordan ain't do that. Jordan was all from the ground up, and you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think when you have that kind of attachment to the masses, or at least to 3 generations of people from the 80s, 90s, 2000s, people that are attached to you, it's hard to debunk or even get an honest story about the narrative because the narrative is controlled by those that have that interest in Michael Jordan. You feel what I'm saying? So, I just sit back and I keep my opinion. And those that want to engage in it, we can. But I understand that people love Michael Jordan beyond basketball. They love him for more than just his game. You know what I'm saying? And
Facts.
that's just what it is with that, man. You know what I'm saying? Overall, like you said, man, it's a great documentary. Definitely is one of the best out there for sure. Like hands down. You know, 10 hours. Like
Yeah. I
come on,
mean,
it's
yeah. I mean, you can't deny like the greatness, the footage, the excellence that was put forth. I mean, like I said, no matter how you feel about the man, you can't deny
yeah,
the
yeah,
results. I mean, and that's just what it comes down to. But overall, we thank you guys for sticking with us. This was our first official episode. We actually recorded a few days ago. I feel like we should let the audience know, but we didn't actually record.
Bull, yo. It's our first time using the Anchor app, and we're thinking it's recorded. We had a whole conversation, a good convo too, and didn't even
Yes,
record.
sir.
But we're definitely glad that we got it together now. So we appreciate
We
y'all.
we appreciate you guys, and once again, man, we're praying for the family of Brittany, our dear friend, who went on to be with the Lord yesterday. And we just, appreciate the memories that we have, but we definitely want to continue to shout her out, and really we'll just dedicate this first season of our podcast to her, and just try to continue to build on what we did from here. Not exactly sure what our next topic will be as of right now, but we look forward to the feedback that you guys will provide to us. Man, like this is a great opportunity. First time doing it. I think that this is an exciting moment for myself
Mm-hmm.
and Lenjo. And like I said, we appreciate the feedback. And one more time, Lenjo, give them the scoop of where
Yes,
they can
sir.
follow
You can
us at.
follow us on Instagram at TLAR_podcast and subscribe to us on YouTube at the.l.a.reports. Thank y'all again. And, fly high, Britt. We miss you.
Fly high, Britt.
All right, for sure.